Peace and blessings to the 12 tribes of Israel. Today I'm going to deal with a Bible share called Bad Marriage. So I did a Bible share some time ago, and it was called Who God Put Together, right? And that was basically explaining that there's two types of marriages. So you've got a marriage that God puts together. So God blesses that marriage and he puts those two people together, right? And then you've got another type of marriage which Satan puts together, right? So that's a marriage that is not, that the Lord doesn't bless, right? It's a marriage that the Lord will never bless. Now, Satan might curse that marriage or bless that marriage, however you want to say it, but it doesn't mean that God is in that marriage, right? But marriage, the marriage is not something where you just kind of jump in and jump out. You have to determine what type of marriage you have. So if you haven't proved a person properly and you end up committing yourself to that person for life, or you do the paperwork, now you're kind of stuck, because once you go in a woman, you kind of stuck with her for the rest of your life. So, but if you go in a woman and you realize, oh, hang on, this woman lied to me. You know, she said she's this, that, and the other, and she's not, right? She said she's a good woman. She pretended to me for a year, and she's not really a good woman at all. She's lazy. She's good for nothing. You know, she's on drugs half the time, you know, and vice versa. You might marry a man and think, well, he's the bee's knees. He's everything that is special in a man, right? And then you get married to him and then you realize he's a drug dealer, right? He's a hot-headed person who threatens you with violence all the time. You know, he hits you, you know, that kind of thing, right? Now, if you get married to someone and you realize that that is the case, then you're going to have to kind of just see what the Lord is going to do with that marriage, because the Bible says that if the person is pleased to dwell, then don't leave. But if they're not pleased to dwell and they want to go, let them go, right? So in the other Bible share, I kind of went through this, but this one I want to do bad marriage, right? Now, what I want to go to is, let me go to, first I'm going to go to 1 Corinthians 7:28. And I'm going to deal with trouble in the flesh. And if thou marry, thou hast not sinned, and if a virgin marry, she hath not sinned. So it's good to get married. You know, if you find yourself burning, it's the Lord's way of saying that you need to get married. You know, you need to find someone. You need to find someone, prove them, and get married to them and stay married. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you. So Paul is saying you will have trouble in the flesh, because just think about it. Marriage is when you bring two people together who are imperfect, right? They're not perfect. And you're kind of putting these two separate people together and you're trying to make them one flesh, right? So it takes some time to kind of make that happen. So that's why it's so important to prove a friend, right? So when you do prove a friend, you're no longer committing yourself, getting the paperwork done, getting the white wedding and all the rest of that. You know, fleshing out money for all this marriage, for big wedding, the big day. You know, the big honeymoon and all the rest of it, and the paperwork. And then afterwards you realize, oh, I got stuck with a dud. This is not really what this person said that they were. You know, they said that they were the best people in the whole entire planet, and they actually fooled me into thinking that they were great, but they're not great, because now we live together and I realize this person is terrible. Right? He's a drug dealer. He's a compulsive smoker. He's a chain smoker. He's a wife beater. You know, he's lazy, or vice versa. You might find the woman is lazy. She's very masculine. Before she was very feminine, but all of a sudden she's very masculine, because now you're living with her now, so she can't pretend anymore. You know, before she was very, very thin, and now she's just lazy and fat. Right? Now, obviously, you can't just marry someone and just kind of say, oh, well, it's not what I paid for, and then just kind of leave. You can't do that because Paul said you'll have much trouble in the flesh, right? You're just going to have to give it time and then pray and hope the Lord will fix it, right? And if the Lord wants you to be together, you'll be together. And if he doesn't want you to be together, you won't be together, right? So let's go to Matthew 19 and we're going to read from 5 to 6. And said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. So let's read it again. And said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother. So a man leaves his parents, his mother and his father that raised him, and shall cleave to his wife. So now he's going and cleaving to his wife, and she is leaving her mother and father, and they twain shall be one flesh. So whereby they're separate, they're single, now they are one flesh. They're no longer separate entities. They are now one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. But therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. So if God put you together, no man is allowed to put them asunder. So if the Lord put you together, the Lord has married you, basically, right? And if you veer away from that, then you get into much trouble with the Lord, right? So say the Lord puts you together and then you all of a sudden think, oh, do you know what? I just want to have a bit of fun. Let me go back to my whoremongering ways, right? And then you start sleeping with other women and then coming home and saying, well, I'm a man, I'm supposed to do that. The Lord doesn't like that, right? Because you're taking the marriage for a joke. And vice versa. If she starts thinking, oh, well, he's married to me now, so now I can go back to smoking again. I can go back to whoring again. I can go back to being, talking to him, disrespecting my husband. I can go back to being that. I can go back to being a feminist because now I live with him and he's locked up. He's done the paperwork, so he's locked with me. No, right? The Lord, if it's God, you stay together. But if it's Satan, it will disintegrate. Not all marriages that are put together by Satan will disintegrate. Some of them will last for a very long time, right? But it's more than likely going to disintegrate if it's Satan, right? But if it's God who put it together, he will make it last, right? And if you just come out of a marriage just because you feel like it or because you're not feeling it anymore, then the Lord will hold you responsible because his marriage is honorable, right? He said marriage is honorable, right? So let's now go to the heart of the Bible share, which is Judges 13:7. So we're going to go to Judges 13:7. So what we're going to deal with is we're first going to deal with a man called Samson, right? And I'm going to show you example of a bad marriage that the Lord didn't put together, right? Well, two marriages that the Lord didn't put together. So let's go to Judges 13 and we're going to read 7. But he said unto me, behold, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and now drink no wine nor strong drink, neither eat any unclean thing, but the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Right. So Mona, let me get his name right. So Manoah, he couldn't conceive with his wife because his wife was barren. But all of a sudden, the Lord allowed her to have a child, right? And he was a very special child. His name was Samson, and he was a Nazarite, right? So let's read it again. But he said unto me, behold, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and now drink no wine nor strong drink, neither eat any unclean thing, for the child shall be called a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death, right? So let's carry on to Judges 14, and we're going to read from 1 to 4. So the Nazarite would have been Samson, right? So that was the baby, the special baby that was being born. And Samson went to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. So he saw a woman of another nation, a Philistine woman. And he came, a daughter of the Philistines means that she was a product of the Philistines people. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me to wife. Then his father and his mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren, or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. So his parents are saying, isn't there any Israelite woman that you can take for a wife? Why are you going and taking a woman who's not Israel, right? So they have reservations for it, right? They do not want him to cleave to this woman. Let's carry on. But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord, that they sought an occasion against the Philistines, for at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So they didn't know when it was from the Lord or not. So let's read it again. But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord, that he sought an occasion against the Philistines, for at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Right, so they were thinking, hang on, the law says that you're supposed to be marrying your own people, right? And why is Samson marrying this woman? Why does he want to marry this woman? He's supposed to be like a holy child unto the Lord, special child. Why would the Lord tell him to marry this woman? So they're kind of like questioning the whole thing, right? So let's now go to Judges 16. And we're going to read from 1 to 24. So now we're going to read kind of what happened, right? So this is another incident because he got with this woman, by the way. He got with this woman and it didn't work, right? So he got with her and it didn't work, right? And it didn't work, right? I tell you what, let's go to Judges 14:16. So let's get a piece of that. So, and Samson's wife wept before him and said, Thou doest but hate me and lovest me not. Thou hast put forth a riddle unto the children of my people and hast not told it me. And he said unto her, Behold, I have not told it my father nor my mother, and shall I tell it thee? Right, so he was having marital problems, right? Because he was against her people and she was obviously for her people, right? And he's saying, oh, well, she's pretty much saying you're against my people. And he's saying, I'm not going to tell you the riddle, right? Because I haven't even told my own parents, my own mother and father. Why would I tell it to you, right? So he was having marital problems, right? But the long and short of it is that it didn't last, right? Because she was given to another one of his, I think one of his friends, one of his companions to wife, right? So it didn't work. But anyhow, this is another marriage that he had, right? So we're reading Judges 16 and we're going to read from 1 to 24. Then went Samson to Gaza and saw there a harlot and went in unto her. And it was told the Gazarites, saying, Samson is come hither. And they compassed him in and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, were quiet all the night, saying, In the morning, when it is day, we shall kill him. And Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city and the 2 posts, and went away with them, bar and all, and put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of a hill that is before Hebron. Right, so Samson was a very wayward type of dude, right? He was sleeping with whores and sleeping with the other nations. Right, so let's carry on to 4. And it came to pass afterwards that he loved the woman in the valley of Saruk, whose name was Delilah. So here is his other wife, right? So here is his other wife after the first wife, right? And her name was Delilah. Let's carry on. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and said unto her, Entice him and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give thee every one of us 1,100 pieces of silver. Right? So he engaged in something that he should have done, right? Because the Lord instructed us never to marry the strange people of the land, right? We weren't supposed to engage in marrying the heathen, because the Lord was dealing with Israel, not with any other nation. So therefore, when you marry these nations, then you're going to copy their customs, right? And the Lord did not want us to do that, wanted Israel to do that, right? So they're now saying here that this woman, Delilah, they were saying, oh, we're going to use you so that because Samson was a man of strength. He was a Nazarite, right? The strength was in his hair, right? And we're going to read this in this story. But to preempt the story, they were actually going to pay her so that she can actually take him out, because he had much strength. Samson had much strength, and he was defeating the Philistines and taking them out. And then the Philistines wanted to use Delilah to take him out, right? So that's the preempting of this story, right? So let's carry on. So let's read from 5. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and said unto her, entice him, and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give thee every one of us 1,100 pieces of silver. And Delilah said to Samson, tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherewith thou mayest be bound to afflict thee. Right? So she wants to find out where he's getting all his strength. And Samson said unto her, if thou bind me with 7 green withs that were never dried, that shall I be weak, and be as another man. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 green withs which had not been dried, and she bound him with them. So he's giving away. So he's basically he's lying to her and saying, this is what's going to take away my strength. And she's going away and she's trying to put him in a situation where his strength will be weakened. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 greens with which had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now there were men lying in wait, abided with her in the chamber, and she said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he brake the withs as a thread of tow is broken when it toucheth the fire. So his strength was not known. And Delilah said unto Samson, behold, thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Now tell me, I pray thee, wherewith thou mayest be bound. And he said unto her, if thou bind me fast with new ropes that never were occupied, then shall I be weak and be as another man. Delilah therefore took new ropes and bound him wherewith, and said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And there were liers in wait, abiding in the chamber, and he broke them from off his arms like a thread. And Delilah said unto Samson, hitherto thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou mayest be bound. And she said unto him, if thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. And she fastened it with the pin, and said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awakened out of his sleep, and went away with the pin of the beam with the web. And she said unto him, how canst thou say, I love thee, when thine heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me those 3 times, and hast not told me wherein thy strength lieth. So he lied to her 3 times, saying, this is where my strength lieth, this is where my strength lieth. And he lied to her, and she actually tried to do exactly what he said, to weaken him, right? That he said will weaken him. And because she was such a bad wife, she didn't mean him any good. Samson was such a how nicely can I put it? He wasn't a bright guy in terms of women. You know, he had a weakness for women, a certain type of women, right? So let's carry on. And so 15, and she said unto him, how canst thou say I love thee when thy heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me these 3 times, and hast not told me wherein thy strength lieth. And it came to pass, when she pressed him daily with her words, and urged him, so that his soul was vexed unto death. Right? So she kept heckling him. She kept nagging him. Oh, you don't tell me where your strength lies. You gotta tell me this. You gotta tell me this, Samson. Samson, you gotta tell me where your strength lies. You just lie to me all the time. You lie to me. You lie to me. We don't talk. We don't talk. We don't talk. Talk to me, Samson. But I talk to you every day. We talk every. We don't talk. We don't talk. We don't talk. You don't tell me anything. You never told me where your strength lieth. You never told me that. You lied to me 3 times, Samson. We don't talk. Our relationship is in trouble, Samson. We are in trouble. That's how she was to Samson, right? She was nagging him to death. Let's read it again. And it came to pass when she pressed him daily with her words and urged him, so that his soul was vexed unto death. So he just had enough, because he didn't want to say it to her. 17, that he told her all his heart and said unto her, there hath not come a razor upon mine head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. So now he's giving away all the secrets now. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up this once, for he hath showed me all his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and brought money in their hand. Right? So now she's like, yes, got him now. Nagged him to death to do what I wanted him to do. I pestered him until he got in a tizzy, and now he's told me the secrets now. Got it now. Really nailed it now. Come over, lads. Right, so they came over and they were so sure that this was it, they brought the money too. And she made him sleep upon her knees, and she made him sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks of his head, and she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. What was he doing sleeping on her knees? Okay, 20. And she said, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep and said, I will go out as other times before and shake myself. And he wist not that the Lord was departed from him. So the Lord departed from him, right? He gave away the secrets. First of all, he married heathens, which he wasn't supposed to do. Then he married a really bad woman, a wicked woman that was not there to love him and to cherish him and to respect him, etc., etc. He married a heathen, right? He married someone who was wicked. Let's read 20. And she said, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep and said, I will go out as other times before and shake myself. And he wist not that the Lord was departed from him. 21. But the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with fetters of brass, and he did grind in the prison house. So they got him where they wanted him, because before they couldn't capture him, right? Because he was too strong, right? So now what they did is they took his eyes out, so he couldn't see anything. He was completely weakened. Then the lords of the Philistines gathered them together for to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon, their god, and to rejoice, for they said, our God hath delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands. So they gave a rejoice unto their god, which is Satan. Right? They gave rejoice unto their god, which is Satan. Obviously, Delilah was straight from hell. She was from Satan. She was cursed from Satan. Satan gave him exactly what he desired. Right? Let's carry on. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, that's the Philistines, our God hath delivered into our hands our enemy and the destroyer of our country, which slew many of us. Right, so I'm going to leave that bit there of that story, right, because that was just an example of a bad marriage. So they were married, in fact, he had numerous marriages, right? So he had the first marriage, and obviously, he wasn't supposed to be with her because she was of another nation, because the law was you weren't supposed to do that. Then he had, the Bible says that he went with a harlot, right? So we know the kind of character that he was a whoremonger, basically, right? And then he got with Delilah, and Delilah didn't mean him any good. So that was a bad marriage. That was a marriage built by Satan, right? So a bad marriage is a marriage which is not orchestrated by God, right? Or a strange marriage. A strange marriage just goes into marriage with strangers, as defined by Prophet Ezra. and Nehemiah, right? So that's when you marry outside of your people. You know, if the Lord says don't do it and you do it, then obviously that's not going to be a God-given marriage, right? So anything which is a bad marriage or not God-given marriage, it will end up being a bad marriage. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? Now, Samson, he knew the law, but he went against the law. Even his parents were saying to him, Samson, she's not of your people. You're not supposed to do that. And Samson said, well, to hell with it. I'm still choosing her as a wife, right? He, obviously he had there's about 2 or 3 women, right, that he was sleeping with, and he was not supposed to do that, right? So obviously he had a bad marriage because it wasn't God given. Because the Bible says, who God put together, let no man put asunder. We're not supposed to be unequally yoked with non-believers. People who don't believe in what the Bible is saying. Even Israelites that don't believe. You're not really supposed to be with non-believers. And Samson went completely against it because he knew that Israel was fighting against the Philistines, but he still went messing around with their women, right? And he was such a simp that he allowed his wife to manipulate him to the point where he revealed that his hair carried the power, right? And then she obviously organized to have it cut so that they can capture him and basically kill him, subdue him, right? Because they was having problems capturing him and subduing him. Now, obviously, that's a bad marriage, right? That's an example of a bad marriage, because if the Lord doesn't sanction a marriage to go ahead, then it really shouldn't go ahead. If all the signs are there, when you look in the Bible and the Bible says, oh, this, look for this and look for that. For instance, if you find a woman who's loud, who always bangs on about, you men do this and you men do that. You men, it's not equal. This is not an equal relationship. I believe in equality. If you meet a woman that talks like that, then that's going to be a bad marriage. So all the signs are there. You just have to look in the Bible, right? But I'm going to spill this over into a part 2. So brothers and sisters, I hope you were edified. Shalom.